What's it like to be hungry but unable to taste food? To be touched by a woman and feel nothing but the mechanical pressure of skin against skin? To stand in the rain and not know if it's warm or cold until you look down and see steam rising from your clothes? What kind of hell is it when your body works perfectly, heart pumping blood like it's supposed to, lungs pulling in air, nerves firing signals to a brain that receives them but can't translate them into anything that feels like living, but you're a ghost in your own flesh, watching life happen around you instead of to you? That was Zhang Danwu's story. And tonight, in a penthouse that cost more than most people would see in 3 lifetimes, it was about to get so much worse. The penthouse in Yongsan sat 50 stories above Seoul like a glass coffin with a view, all chrome and cold leather and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the city like a painting of everything he owned but couldn't enjoy. The woman, her name had already slipped through his mind like water through a sieve because they always did, gathered her clothes from his bedroom floor with hands that shook just enough to let him know she was about to cry. She'd been there 6 hours. 6 hours of trying everything her body knew, every technique that usually made men worship at her feet like she was salvation wrapped in skin and expensive perfume. Danwu had watched her the way you watch a documentary about insects. Interested in that distant academic way that has nothing to do with feeling and everything to do with just watching time pass. Did I do something wrong? Her voice cracked on the question, mascara running beneath her eyes like oil paint melting in the rain. Danwu sat on the edge of his bed, bare-chested, and the city lights caught on the ink covering his torso. Cobras coiled around his ribs like they were trying to squeeze life back into dead meat. One massive serpent striking upward along his neck, fangs frozen just below his jaw in mid-strike. Beautiful and lethal, like a warning written in skin that no one ever heeded. He stared at his hands the way a mechanic stares at an engine that won't turn over, knowing something's broken, not knowing if it's the machine or just him not understanding how to fix it anymore. "You were perfect," he said finally, and each word tasted like dust in a mouth that couldn't taste anything anymore. Then what is? How do you explain emptiness to someone who's never been hollow? "I'm broken," he said, voice flat as a funeral. "In ways you can't fix, in ways nobody can fix." She left without another word, heels clicking against imported marble like a countdown to nothing. The moment she was gone, Danwu walked to his kitchen, all stainless steel and sharp edges, and pulled out a knife. German steel, the kind that costs more than most people make in a week, sharp enough to split atoms, if atoms had skin. He dragged it across his palm in one clean line and watched blood well up, red as all the promises no one keeps. He felt absolutely nothing. Not pain, not even that basic animal response to tissue damage, just the visual confirmation that yes, his body still bled, even if it couldn't feel a goddamn thing. "Jesus Christ, Hyung!" Min-jae's voice cut through the silence like a prayer that arrived 3 hours too late. Danwoo's younger brother stood in the doorway, still wearing yesterday's clothes, eyes red-rimmed from whatever combination of worry and exhaustion had become his default expression. 3 years sober, and Min-jae still looked like he was one bad day away from falling off the wagon. "We talked about this. You promised me one more try." "I've tried 18 therapists, Min-jae. Tried medications that turned me into a walking zombie. Tried experimental treatments that cost more than most people see in a lifetime. They all say the same thing. The bullet that was supposed to kill me 9 years ago damaged my limbic system. The parts of my brain that process pleasure and satisfaction got blown to hell and back. I'm structurally incapable of feeling good. How long do I keep pretending this is living instead of just existing in a body that forgot how to do anything except survive?" Min-jae crossed the room like a man walking toward a bomb he's trying to defuse, grabbed a kitchen towel and wrapped it around Danwoo's hand with practiced precision. "One more," he said quietly, voice steady like he was negotiating with a man on a ledge. "The new therapist arrives today. She specializes in cases like yours. Anhedonia, severe dissociation. A Nigerian woman named Chioma Olisa. She's had success with patients everyone else gave up on. They all have success stories until they meet me. Then I become the asterisk in their research papers. This one's different, Dr. Beck says. She's unconventional, doesn't follow traditional protocols. Dr. Beck has been trying to fix me for 9 years and failed every single time. Because what's the alternative, Hyung? You eating a bullet for breakfast? Just try one more time. Donwoo looked at his brother, 28 years old, clean for the first time since he was 19, trying so desperately hard to believe that broken things could be fixed if you just found the right glue. Fine, one more. But, Min-jae, when this fails, and it will fail, I need you to let me go. Can you do that? Min-jae didn't answer. They both knew he couldn't. At Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos, where the air tasted like rain waiting to happen and red earth that stuck to your shoes like memory, Chioma Olisa stood in a security line that moved like molasses in winter. Everything she owned was crammed into one battered suitcase that had seen better decades. At the bottom, folded with the kind of care you reserve for holy things, was her younger sister's wrapper. The one with yellow flowers that Adana used to say reminded her of sunshine before she forgot what sunshine felt like and swallowed an entire bottle of pills instead of asking for help one more time. 6 months since the funeral, where Chioma had stood in the rain and wondered if God was crying too, or if the universe just didn't care. 6 months since she found her baby sister's body in the bathroom, pills scattered across the floor like fallen stars that had forgotten how to shine. 6 months since she read the note written in Adana's careful handwriting. I'm tired of pretending I feel things I don't. I'm sorry I can't be fixed, sis. I know you tried. Chioma had screamed at that note like screaming could resurrect the dead. I studied for this. I specialized in depression and dissociative disorders. Why didn't you let me help you? But the dead don't answer questions, and guilt makes a home in your bones whether you send it an invitation or not. Soul wasn't destiny calling her name, it was an escape wearing a professional smile. When the recruiter from Hunseng Psychiatric Institute had reached out, offering to cover her flight, provide housing, handle all the paperwork, Chioma had looked at her bank account. 32,000 naira. Barely enough for 2 weeks' rent in Lagos. She said yes before the recruiter finished explaining the benefits package. She just needed to be somewhere that wasn't Lagos, somewhere that didn't smell like Adana's shea butter perfume everywhere she turned. 15 hours later, jet-lagged and disoriented, Chioma stood in Dr. Baek Ji-won's office at Hansong Psychiatric Institute. Dr. Baek was beautiful in that precise Korean way. Skin like porcelain that had never seen a pore, hair that fell in a perfect black sheet, and a smile that didn't reach anywhere near her eyes. Your credentials are quite impressive, Dr. Olisa. Johns Hopkins for your doctorate, specialized training in anhedonia and trauma-induced dissociative disorders. Dr. Baek tapped perfectly manicured nails against the file folder. But our clientele is particular. Elite Korean families. Old money. They have certain expectations about their healthcare providers. Chioma had heard this song before, the polite Korean way of saying, "You're black," and our rich clients might have a problem with that. Suffering doesn't check passports at the door, Dr. Baek, she said, keeping her voice professional but firm. Pain speaks every language fluently. And respectfully, if your elite clients are hurting badly enough, they'll take help from whoever has the skills to provide it. Something flickered across Dr. Baek's face. Maybe surprise or irritation. We'll see. I'm assigning you to our most challenging case, Jang Dunwoo. He's been my patient for 9 years. Severe anhedonia following traumatic brain injury. He's very special to me. The way she said special made something in Chioma's chest tighten. I've invested significant time and personal effort into his treatment. Professional boundaries existed for a reason, and Dr. Baek was tap dancing on that line in 4-inch heels. What therapeutic approaches have you tried with him? Everything modern psychiatry has to offer. SSRIs, SNRIs, atypical antipsychotics, electroconvulsive therapy, transcranial magnetic stimulation, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. Nothing works. His condition is permanent. Dr. Baek's eyes went hard as diamonds. I'm only assigning you to him because our board insists on trying new approaches. But Dr. Elisa, don't give him false hope. That's crueler than honesty. Help him accept his reality. Chioma studied the woman across the desk, saw something hungry and possessive lurking beneath the professional veneer. I won't give him false hope, she said carefully, but I also won't give him false despair. Sometimes acceptance comes after you've tried everything, not before. If you're already feeling the pull of the story, if something in these words is touching that place in your chest where your own fears about emptiness and disconnection live, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because what happens when these two broken people finally meet will either heal them both or destroy everything they touch. The therapy room was designed to be calming. Soft lighting, neutral colors, leather furniture that probably cost more than Chioma's entire education. Zhang Danwu sat in the chair like a king who'd gotten bored of his kingdom. Dressed in all black that made the tattoos visible at his collar look like they were trying to escape his body, the cobra's head striking up from beneath his shirt, intricate scales wrapped around what she could see of his neck, and a smile that didn't reach anywhere near her eyes. "You're number 19, he said without preamble. His voice was rough like gravel on concrete. Dr. Baek says you specialize in cases like mine, that you've had success with anhedonia patients everyone else gave up on. I don't believe in cases like yours, Chioma said, settling into the chair across from him. Every brain is different. Every trauma leaves its own unique fingerprints. You're not a category or a diagnosis. You're a person, a human being who's suffering. Poetic. Wrong, but poetic. He studied her with those empty eyes. I can't taste food. Everything tastes like wet cardboard. Can't feel physical pleasure or pain. I could break my hand and not know it except for seeing broken bones. Can't experience joy or sadness. No anger, no fear, nothing. I'm a ghost driving a meat suit. So tell me, Dr. Elisa, what's your miracle cure for a man who's already dead but forgot to stop breathing? I don't do miracles, Chioma said, leaning forward slightly. I do work. The hard, uncomfortable, sometimes painful kind that most people quit halfway through because it's easier to stay broken than to fight for healing when you're not even sure healing exists anymore. I can't feel pain either, so that particular threat doesn't land. I'm not talking about physical pain. I'm talking about the pain of remembering what it felt like to be whole. The pain of hoping things might get better and being disappointed again. The pain of trying and failing and having to wake up the next morning and try again anyway. That kind of pain. Tell me about before the injury. What did satisfaction feel like back when you could still feel it? Something flickered in those empty eyes, surprised that someone would ask about ghosts instead of trying to exorcise them. Why does it matter what it used to feel like? That person is dead. He has been for 9 years. Humor me. Dan Wu was quiet for so long, Chioma thought he might not answer. Then, so quietly, she had to lean forward. My mother made kimchi jjigae every Sunday. She'd start early in the morning, let it simmer for hours until the whole house smelled like home, like family, like everything good that exists in the world. The first bite would burn your tongue, not in a bad way, but in that way that wakes you up, makes you pay attention, makes you feel alive. Like your taste buds were throwing a party and everyone was invited. His voice went distant, hollow. I haven't tasted anything in 9 years. Not her food before she died. Not expensive whiskey. Not even my own blood when I cut myself, just to see if maybe this time the pain will register. Close your eyes, Chioma said. What? Close your eyes. Describe the kimchi jjigae. Not how it tastes now. You can't taste now. How it tasted then. Every single detail you can remember. Dan-woo closed his eyes and Chioma watched his face carefully. It was hot enough to make you blow on the spoon, spicy but not overwhelming. You could taste all the layers underneath the heat. The tofu was soft, almost melting on your tongue. The pork had this perfect char on the outside, tender on the inside. My mother always added too much garlic because she said there was no such thing as too much garlic. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. And the broth. God, the broth was like drinking comfort itself. He stopped, opened his eyes. They were wet. Did you just... Chioma's heart raced. Did you taste it? Even for a second? I don't know. Dan-woo's hands were shaking. Maybe. Or maybe I just remembered what tasting felt like so clearly that my brain tricked itself. I haven't cried in 9 years. Didn't think I could anymore. Your brain isn't structurally broken, Dan-woo. Not completely. It's psychologically locked. The scans show damaged sheer limbic system, yes, but the continuing anhedonia, that might be your brain's way of protecting you from feeling anything. Because feeling means vulnerability, and vulnerability is what got you shot. She paused. We're going to teach it that feeling is safe again. Memory reconsolidation therapy. Your brain can't access pleasure directly anymore, but it remembers what pleasure felt like. We're going to build a bridge from memory to present experience. And if it doesn't work, then we try something else. But Dan-woo, you have to actually want this to work. Want to do the work even when it's hard. Dan-woo looked at her for a long moment, and something shifted in those empty eyes. Not hope, exactly. More like curiosity. The faintest flicker of maybe. Call me Dan-woo. And yeah, let's do the work. Over the next 8 weeks, something impossible happened. Chioma rebuilt Dan-woo's world one memory at a time, and slowly, so slowly it was almost imperceptible at first, he started to feel again. Week 1, he could access maybe 5 seconds of remembered sensation before it faded. Week 2, 10 seconds. Week 3, he started noticing patterns. When Chioma was in the room, guiding him with her voice, the memories came easier, lasted longer, felt more real. Her presence became an anchor, a safety signal that told his knockdown nervous system it was okay to open the doors just a crack. Week 5, they had their first real breakthrough. Dan-woo bit into samgyeopsal at his favorite restaurant while Chioma described the taste using his own memories as a template. Something clicked, like a key finding the right lock. For maybe 30 seconds, he actually tasted it. Not perfectly, not like before, but enough to know it was real pork, real salt, real smoke. He grabbed Chioma's hand across the table without thinking, squeezed it hard. Holy Catholic Church, he whispered, tears running down his face. I can taste it! Oh my God, Chioma, I can actually taste it! The waiter stared. Other diners whispered. The serpent of Yongsan crying over grilled meat. But Dan-woo didn't care. For the first time in 9 years, food tasted like something other than textured nothing. Week 6, the dependency started forming. Dan-woo began calling Chioma outside of sessions. I'm having dinner with Min-jae. Can you walk me through it? She did at first because it seemed like therapeutic progress. Then it became every meal, every business meeting, every moment when the numbness started creeping back. He couldn't access the memories anymore without her guidance. She became the bridge between numb and alive. Min-jae noticed first. Young, this isn't healthy. You're not learning to feel on your own. You're learning to feel through her. What happens when she's not available? She won't leave. She's my therapist. No, Min-jae said quietly. That's what drugs do. They're always there when you need them until they're not. And I would know. But Dan-woo didn't want to hear it. For the first time in 9 years, he felt almost human. Week 7, Dan-woo invited Chioma to his pet house for dinner, not as therapy, as something else. She knew she should say no, But when she looked at him, she saw Adana, that same desperate need to feel, that same cliff edge between trying and giving up. She had failed Adana. Maybe saving Danwoo could redeem that. The dinner was Nigerian food. Jollof rice cooked the way her grandmother used to make it. A goosey soup that smelled like home. Puff puff that filled the penthouse with memories. Danwoo couldn't taste any of it directly, only when Chioma described her own experience. "Tell me about the first time you had jollof rice," he said, watching her with intensity that had nothing to do with hunger. She closed her eyes. "I was 6 years old, my grandmother's kitchen in Lagos. She cooked over firewood. The smoke got into everything, your clothes, your hair. The rice was red as blood, every grain separate. She'd give me the crusty bits from the bottom. They'd crunch when you bit down. Tasted like love tastes when your grandmother makes it." Danwoo watched her face, and something happened that hadn't happened in 9 years. He felt something that wasn't a memory, something present, real. Emotional desire, the want to make her happy, to see her smile. "I think I'm falling in love with you," he said, raw and unplanned. "Or maybe I'm falling in love with the ability to feel anything at all. I don't know the difference anymore." "Danwoo, that's transference. It's normal in therapy, but it's not real love." "Does it matter? If you're the only person who makes me feel human, does it matter what we call it?" She should have said yes. Should have protected them both. Instead, she kissed him. They made love in his bedroom, with soul glittering beyond the windows. Danwoo couldn't feel his own body directly, but Chioma guided him through it, describing her sensations in vivid detail. He experienced pleasure through her pleasure, felt through her feelings. Afterward, he whispered against her hair, "You cured me." But Chioma knew the truth. She hadn't cured him. She had become his drug. The next month was intoxication, disguised as healing. Danwoo couldn't eat without Chioma on the phone, couldn't sleep without her voice, couldn't function without her constant presence. His organization noticed, his rivals noticed, and Dr. Beck noticed most of all. Dr. Beck had been in love with Jang Danwoo for 9 years. The possessive kind. The kind that says if I can't have him, no one gets to. She'd watched him choose Lee Soo-jin, then watched Soo-jin abandon him. Had waited patiently for him to turn to her. He never did. Stayed empty, unreachable. Then Chioma arrived. Within weeks, Danwoo was feeling again, living again. For her. Dr. Beck couldn't have him, but she'd burn the world before letting anyone else have him either. After a thorough research, she got the phone number of one of those who wanted to cut off the serpent's head. Dr. Beck made a phone call to Hwang Tae-song, leader of the Red Crane Syndicate, Danwoo's most dangerous rival. "I have information about Danwoo's vulnerability. Interested?" Money changed hands, plans were made. Are you wondering what happened next as much as I am? If yes, good. Hold on to that feeling, because what happens next will either restore your faith in love or shatter it into pieces so small you'll never find all of them again. Week 12, Dr. Beck set her trap with precision. She'd created a patient file, invented a wealthy businessman with symptoms similar to Danwoo's, scheduled his appointment on Tuesday at 2 p.m., knowing Danwoo had his own session at 3 p.m. Except Dr. Beck sent Danwoo a text from Chioma's phone. She'd cloned it weeks ago. The text said, "Can you come at 1:30 instead? Had a cancellation and would love to see you early. Missing you. See." Danwoo arrived at Hansong at 1:25 p.m. with 2 cups of coffee, thinking he'd surprise her. He walked towards her therapy room thinking about how her face would light up. He stopped outside her door. Through the partially open door, he could see her with another patient, a man roughly his age, well-dressed, sitting in the same chair Danwoo always sat in. And Chioma was using the same techniques, the same gentle voice. "Close your eyes. Describe the taste. Not now, you can't taste now. How it tasted then. Every detail." The man closed his eyes, started describing. When he opened them, they were wet with tears, exactly like Danwoo's had been. Danwoo's blood turned to ice. I'm not special, just another patient, another case study. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. A video file. Security footage showed Chioma in a coffee shop, meeting a man Danwoo knew on site, Park Jin-ho, one of Hwang Tae-sung's most top lieutenants. The timestamp was from 3 days ago. Jin-ho slid an envelope across the table. Chioma opened it, looked inside, nodded, and tucked it into her bag. Another message, audio file. Chioma's voice, crystal clear. It's easier than I thought it would be. God, he's so desperate for connection, he'll believe anything. The dependency is textbook. I just guide him through memories and he thinks I'm performing miracles. Another voice. And the book deal? Already in motion. Breaking the Serpent. Inside the mind of Seoul's most dangerous man. Publishers are in a bidding war. The recordings are perfect. Every session is documented. His vulnerabilities, his fears, it's all gold. And you know the best part? He trusts me completely. He thinks I love him. I almost feel bad. Almost. But the game is game. I need that money. Danmi's hands started shaking. Another message. Check your email. Publishing contracts with Chioma's signature. Book outline. Audio files of their sessions edited to sound like manipulation training. Bank deposits from offshore accounts. PDF of the first 3 chapters describing his trauma in clinical detail. Danwoo stood outside her therapy room, watching her guide another patient through the same process, and something inside him shattered, beyond repair. She's not a healer. She's a predator. He left without confronting her. Went home. Spent 6 hours reviewing the evidence, looking for any sign it was fake. Found none. By the time Chioma arrived that evening, their standing dinner date, Danwoo had made his decision. Danwoo, she smiled when she entered. I brought dessert. How much did Big pay you? The smile died. What? Hwang Tae-sung, the publisher. Whoever you're working for. How much am I worth? He played the audio, watched color drain from her face. That's not... I never said that. Danwoo, that's not my voice. It's edited. Really? Because it sounds exactly like you. I threw the contracts across the desk. Explain these. She picked them up, hands shaking. I've never seen these before. This isn't my signature. Stop lying. I saw you today, using the same techniques on another patient. I'm not special. Just another case. That's my job. I use evidence-based techniques with multiple patients. And meeting with Park Jin-ho? Taking money from my enemies? He played the video. Horror dawned on her face. That's not me. I've never met that man. Someone is framing me. Someone is lying. And the evidence says, it's you. He stepped closer. You saw a desperate man with money. Created dependency, documented everything, sold the story. There is no book. Someone is trying to destroy us. I thought I knew you. Turns out, I knew a performance. He gestured to the door. 72 hours to leave Seoul. After that, my protection is gone. Danwoo! And if you're still here, I'll have you arrested, deported, and blacklisted worldwide. I'll destroy you so thoroughly, your own father won't recognize what's left. I loved you, she whispered. I still love you. Then you're a better liar than I thought. Get out. The next 72 hours destroyed Chioma's life completely. Dr. Baek had been thorough. Han Sung terminated her employment, license suspended, visa revoked, bank account frozen, evicted within 24 hours. The Nigerian community turned their backs, afraid of association. She had nowhere to go. Mrs. Tochi, a Ghanaian woman with Nigerian parents running a hair shop in Ituan, found her sleeping in a subway station on hour 68. Come, child, we look after our own. Mrs. Tochi gave her a corner to sleep, fed her, and listened. Did you do what they're saying? No, I swear on my sister's grave. Then fight. I can't fight him. He owns this city. But Chioma had no resources. On hour 71, she bought a one-way ticket to Lagos with her last money. At the airport, she wrote a letter. Dan Wu, I didn't do what they're accusing me of. I don't know who's framing me, but what we had was real. I didn't cure you through manipulation. I just helped you remember what feeling felt like. The rest was you. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stay and fight. I'm sorry I couldn't save my sister. I'm sorry for everything except loving you. That's the one thing I'd do again. Kioma. She left it at the information desk with instructions to mail it, then boarded the plane with her sister's wrapper, $0, and a heart so broken she wasn't sure it could break this completely without killing her. In Lagos, Kioma lived like a ghost haunting her own life. She slept in her father's cramped apartment in Yaba on the mattress she'd shared with Adana. Her father ran a free clinic for people too poor to afford real hospitals. You're not eating, my child. I'm not hungry. You've not been sleeping. I hear you crying every time. I can't stop thinking about him, how he looked at me like I was nothing. I laughed bitterly. I failed Adana, and I failed him. Or maybe start by saving yourself, my child. Can't pour from an empty cup. But Kioma had no job, no license. The scandal had followed her across oceans. No hospital would hire her. She volunteered at her father's clinic with donated supplies, treating patients who paid in yams and prayers. Tried to convince herself this was enough. Meanwhile, in Seoul, Danwoo was dying differently. The condition returned worse than before because now he knew what peace felt like. The numbness felt like punishment. His brain and heart felt like they were being thrusted with a chainsaw. He cycled through therapists desperately. Nothing worked. He became erratic, dangerous, and stupidly careless. It was bad he nearly started a gang war over a minor territorial dispute. The serpent was already losing his mind. Min Jae watched his brother self-destruct. You don't believe she did it, he said one night. The evidence? Screw the evidence. Do you believe she manipulated you? Long silence. Then, I don't know what I believe anymore. Then find out the truth before you finish destroying yourself. But Danwon was afraid. Afraid that investigating would prove Chioma innocent. Afraid of facing what he'd done to her. Then Hwang Tae-sung, his worst enemy, struck. Ambush at Danwoo's restaurant. Danwoo took 2 bullets, shoulder and thigh. He went down hard, but this time was different. This time, he felt it. He felt that pain. Oh God, he felt it. Actually felt the pain. Hot and sharp and terrible, and the most beautiful thing he'd experienced since Chioma left. He started laughing as Min Jae dragged him to safety. I can feel it. I can actually feel it. 3 days later, in the hospital, recovering from surgery, Danwoo had an epiphany. The pain proved his brain could feel. It wasn't structurally broken, it was psychologically locked. Chioma hadn't cured him through manipulation. She'd made the ability to feel safe. I need to see the evidence again, he told Min Jae. All of it, and I need our best forensic analyst. 2 weeks later, they found the truth. The audio was expertly edited. Chioma's voice, but words sliced from different sessions, contexts removed. The video was deep-faked. Sophisticated, but fake. The contracts were forgeries. The bank deposits traced to Hwang Tae-sung's shell companies. Security footage showed Dr. Beck copying files from the server room, the same USB drive that was later delivered to Danwoo. She was telling the truth, Min Jae said quietly. Danwoo's face drained of color. I destroyed her for nothing. Danwoo's wrath burned the city of Seoul. Dr. Bak's arrest was public and brutal. Danwoo released all the evidence he had gathered proving Chioma's innocence and how Dr. Bak had staged everything. Within 48 hours, she was stripped of her license, arrested for conspiracy and fraud. As for the Hwang Tae-sung syndicate, Danwoo waged the most brutal war in the history of Seoul. The syndicate was ruthlessly dismantled in 3 days. But revenge didn't fix what Danwoo had broken. Peace was nowhere to be found. His mind and heart longed for one woman. He longed for her forgiveness. For a week, he didn't know what to do. Would Chioma ever listen or give him another chance? After digging deep with his vast resources, he found everything he needed to know about Chioma. He flew to Lagos with no plan except to beg. Found her at her father's clinic in Yaba. Small, cramped, poorly ventilated. She wore scrubs that had seen better years and was treating a child's infected wound. She looked up when he entered. Didn't gasp or run, just looked at him with eyes that had learned to guard themselves. "What are you doing here?" "I know the truth. I know Dr. Back framed you. I know you were innocent. I know saying I'm sorry doesn't even begin to cover what I did to you." Long pause. Then, "You're right. It doesn't. You don't get to come here and apologize and think that fixes anything. You threatened me. You told me you'd destroy me so thoroughly my own father wouldn't recognize me. I trusted you, Danwoo. You looked at me like I was garbage. I was wrong. You were cruel and ruthless. There's a difference." Tears gathered in her eyes. "I loved you. I gave you everything, crossed every professional boundary, risked everything, and the moment things got hard, you threw me away like I never mattered." "You mattered. You still matter. Could what? Trust you again? Love you again?" She laughed bitterly. "Danwoo, you didn't just break my heart. You broke me. I slipped in subway stations, lived off charity from strangers while the man I loved destroyed everything I'd built. I'll fix it. Your license is being restored. I've set up compensation. I don't want your money. I don't want your guilt or your redemption. I want you to leave. Let me rebuild my life without you in it." "Chioma, please." "No. You had your chance to believe in me. You chose to destroy me instead. So now, I'm choosing to protect myself. You need to leave." "I'll never stop trying to make this right, even if you never forgive me." "Then that's your burden to carry, not mine." She turned back to her patient. "Goodbye, Danwoo." He stood there, frozen, looking at her hands as she worked, those same hands that had guided him back to feeling. And in those hands, beneath the medical supplies, he saw something. He quickly scanned through everything in seconds. It was her sister's wrapper, those yellow flowers. But now there was something else, something white, rectangular. It was a plane ticket to Seoul, business class. Someone had spent serious money. Departure date, tomorrow. A note attached he couldn't read from this distance. Chioma's hands were shaking as she tried to hide it, as she realized he'd seen it, as carefully built walls started cracking. Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything, every word she just said, every wall she just built, every goodbye she just delivered, hung suspended in the space between them like a question neither of them knew how to answer. Who sent the ticket? Why? Was she planning to use it? Had she already decided to come back before he showed up and complicated everything? And most importantly, what happens next? Subscribe now, because what comes next will change everything you think you know about love, forgiveness, and whether some betrayals cut too deep to ever heal. Hit that notification bell. This story isn't over. It's just beginning, and you do not want to miss what happens when two broken people have to decide whether to fix each other or walk away forever.